Cozy yourself up right now before you watch this. Go get a nice blanket. Go get yourself a coffee. I already drank mine. I already drank 2 actually, and it is only 1 p.m. So good job, me. The way I'm like not in the middle of the screen is really upsetting me, you guys. How's that? This way it just kind of looks like my pillow's like my guest star. Hello besties, welcome to my bed once again. We seem to spend a lot of time here together. That sounded kind of weird. I'm Larissa, for those of you who do not know. For those of you who know, hello. So, besties, in my October books video, I asked you guys if you wanted to see some cozy fall books, and a lot of you guys said yes. So here I am to do that today. That's why I stuck with like a little orange theme, you know, to kind of bring in the fall vibes. Do you like it? I hope you do. I have here 8 books that I feel are great for you to read in the fall. Either because they give very much fall vibes, or just because they're cozy, or just because they're like comfortable books for me. All different reasons as to why I feel you should read these books in the fall. So let's just do this. The first book I'm going to talk about is a book I recommend so incredibly much. So you've probably seen me talk about it before, but you know what? I'm gonna do it again until you read it. Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I actually have several books in this that are some of my favorite of all time. So Love in Other Words, y'all. This book screams cozy comfort. Imagine what you feel when you're watching Gilmore Girls and you're like at Stars Hollow drinking coffee with Lorelai and with Rory, and you have your Jess Mariano annotating books for you. That feeling is what this book gives you. The feeling of being in Stars Hollow during the fall. Need I say more? Does that not convince you? Because if that didn't convince you, I don't know what else will. This book follows Macy, and it is told from her point of view. And essentially when Macy is a child, she meets this boy named Elliot, and they become best friends. And from best friends, they go into like first love. And then it jumps 2 years later, and Macy and Elliot are no longer friends, no longer in contact, and she runs into him at a coffee shop. Yes, a coffee shop. The comfort that brings me. So this book goes back and forth between the This is great. Hi son. Okay, so see? Comfort. I even forgot what I was saying. Oh, this book goes back and forth between the past and the present. So you get to see the then and the now. And you get to see Macy and Elliot becoming friends, falling in love for the first time, really getting to know each other as kids. And then you get to see them now rekindling that friendship and getting to know each other again. And you get to see why they had a falling out and what happened. This book is one of the best books of all time. It revolves a lot around books. Like Elliot and Macy both love to read, and they met in like his makeshift library in her closet. Like she goes to a summer house that her dad and her got, and she walks into her little small closet and he's in there reading, and they make that into a little library. So you get a lot of coffee, books, friendship. A big part of their relationship revolves around books. So it is so comforting. It is so cozy. I cannot explain to you the feeling of this book. Just trust me. Trust me when I tell you to read it, please. This is 5 stars, 100%. One of my favorite books of all time. Next up, we've got a really underrated Colleen Hoover book, and that's Regretting You. I feel like a lot of her books are really, really talked about, and then some of them that are really good are just never discussed at all. And I feel like Regretting You is one of those. I don't really know why this gives me fall vibes. It might be just the cover, but this book is very comforting. The story in itself is very different and very cozy to me. Let me tell you what it's about. Shall I? Yes, I shall. So this book follows mother and daughter, which I haven't seen in a book before. I love that part. And it is told from both of their point of views. The mom's name is Morgan and the daughter's name is Clara. They're not very close. Let's just say they're not Lorelai and Rory Gilmore. Something tragic happens in their family where they're forced to basically pick up the pieces of their entire fallen apart life. That made it sound very depressing, but I promise that it's like very healing. Basically, Chris, which is Clara's dad and Morgan's husband, is involved in a very crazy accident. It's a little bit questionable and very tragic. And then Clara and Morgan are left to pick up the pieces. They both seek comfort in places that the other one doesn't approve of. Clara with the boy that she's forbidden to see, and Morgan with someone that she shouldn't be seeking comfort with. You see 2 love stories in this book, and you see the story of the mom and the daughter. So you get Morgan's love story, you get Clara's love story, and you get their stories together. One thing I will say is Clara, the daughter, really, really annoyed me throughout most of the book, which is why I gave this 4 stars instead of 5. But she makes up for it in the end. I love all the other characters in this book, so I definitely think that Regretting You, you won't regret it. Moving on. I feel like these two, I just saw orange and I was like, fall. But I promise they're good fall books. Next up, y'all, my queen, my favorite author of all time. You already know who is coming. Mariana Zapata with All Roads Lead Here. This is one of the most comforting books of all time. Look at the cover. Does that cover not scream fall to you? So this book follows Aurora and it's told from her point of view. She's going through a really tough situation in her life, and so she's basically forced to start all over. And so she moves to a small town in the mountains where she grew up. Does that not scream comfort to you? And the person that rented out the house to her, she thinks, is an adult, but instead it's a boy who rented out the house for her. And his dad did not know that he was renting out this house. So her landlord, Tobias Rhodes, all roads lead here, doesn't necessarily want her there. So there is Grumpy Sunshine in here, very slow burn, very comforting. One of the most, I would say, stable and healthy relationships I've ever seen in a book, and one of the most mature guys I've ever seen in a book too. It's also age gap. I love age gap. The reason why I find this book so comforting is because Aurora is starting over, so she really wants to like experience and live her life to the fullest. There's a lot of hiking, there's a lot of mountains, like exotic animals, camping, like a lot of things like that, which remind me of fall and give me a lot of comfort. This book is amazing. This is one of those books that made me want to get up and do stuff with my life. Like it made me want to go on a hike. Did I go on a hike? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I definitely stayed laying in bed, but it made me want to, which I feel like is important. The feeling was there. 5 stars, Mariana Zapata, one of my favorite authors, one of the best books ever. Read it. Next up, we've got the fine print, Lauren Asher. I love this book. Okay, I tapped it a lot. That's how much I love it. This book follows Rowan and Zara and is told from both point of views. Yes, incredible. Multiple POVs for the win. And Rowan's grandfather dies and... Sorry, I said that with way too much enthusiasm. I was like, Rowan's grandfather is dead. Yay! That's not what I meant. Rowan's grandfather dies and he leaves Rowan and his 2 brothers letters giving them instructions as to what they have to do to be able to get their part in the companies that he had. Their grandfather was a very, very rich man who owned a bunch of companies. He's in the business of like entertainment, hotels, amusement parks. He's just billionaire who owned a lot of different companies. So he has to go become the director of Dreamland, and Dreamland is an amusement park, and that's where he meets Zara. And Zara is basically a bubbly, incredible, powerful, independent, one of my favorite main characters I've ever seen in a book, and he is that grumpy, rich, sarcastic, rude guy. So this is a lot of Grumpy Sunshine. And Zara, her dream is to become one of the people that comes up with the rides for Dreamland. She's always wanted to do that. And so one night she submits a drunk proposal to Rowan saying what she would change about the park and what she wanted to do, and he gives her the job. This is a very comforting book, very spicy, just amazing, and it's going to be part of a series. It's the Dreamland Billionaires series. The first one, the fine print. The other 2 have not come out yet, but the other 2 are going to be about his 2 brothers, Declan and Cal, and their love stories and their letters and all of that. Imagine Disney World, but with spice is what this book is. The reason why it reminded me a lot of fall is because they do a lot of activities like that in this book. It's first of all so dreamy because it's in an amusement park, which I've never seen a book set in an amusement park before, so I loved that part. Second of all, they go through Halloween and Christmas and snow and trips and pumpkin carving, gingerbread making, all of that is in this book. So I feel like it's very comforting, very holiday, just a great book to read in the fall, honestly, and a fantastic book in general. Definitely 5 stars. But what do we expect from Lauren Asher, honestly? One of my favorite quotes from this book. Her idea is well thought out. She chose to highlight our more diverse characters who often get left behind in favor for our more popular princesses. So it has a lot of representation for diversity and for disabilities. It is so yes. These next 2 I'm going to show are not very like fall, but they're definitely comforting, which is why I included them in here. First one is Archer's Voice. Archer's Voice is definitely more of a like summer setting, but it is so comforting that I think if you just read it like under a little cozy blanket with a fire while it's cold outside drinking hot chocolate, you love this book. You're gonna love it regardless. This is one of my favorite books of all time too. So this book is the story of Archer and Bree. Just saying their names already makes me smile. You get both of their POVs. Bree goes through something traumatic in her life. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's like a big part of the book. But she moves to a small town in Maine, and that's where she meets Archer. And Archer has also had very traumatic past, and that is why he does not speak. But Bree speaks sign language, and so does Archer. So that's how they communicate, and they get to know each other like on a deeper level, it is Friends to Lovers. It is one of the best love stories I've ever seen. I don't want to tell you too much about it because there's a lot of like twists and turns in this book, and both of their pasts are very, very, very traumatic. So I would definitely search up trigger warnings, but they have one of the most wholesome, pure love I've ever seen. One thing I love about this book is that Archer is actually the inexperienced one, because usually in books you see the guy be like the hotshot and the morally gray and very experienced, and the girl is like the innocent one. And this one, it's flipped. Archer is the innocent one and she's the one that's more experienced. And Archer is the most wholesome book boyfriend ever. The sense of a small town gives me fall vibes, so that's on here because she moves to a small town in Maine to basically run away from her problems and a traumatic experience she had. She starts working in a cafe, she meets like these small town people that she grows very fond of, and then she meets Archer. Archer is like a very mysterious guy too. The town doesn't really talk about him, doesn't explain what happened to him. He kind of just keeps to himself, and she basically breaks through to him, and it is so good. Please read Archer's voice. Like, please, if you take anything from this video, is read Archer's voice. So this next one's another one that, like I said, is just comforting to me. Doesn't really have my legs falling asleep. This next one's also one that's more comforting to me rather than more fall, and that's You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hoggle. Y'all, you deserve each other. They deserved each other. The reason why this book gives me so much comfort is because it's so funny. It's one of those that's really, really heavily rom-com, the perfect rom-com. I think it deserves as much hype as like The Hating Game gets, and for some reason it's not talked about enough, so I'm going to talk about it here. It follows Naomi and Nicholas. It is told from Naomi's point of view. They're this engaged couple that basically fell out of love with each other, and they have a wedding coming up that neither one of them wants to cancel because neither one of them wants to give the satisfaction to the other person of canceling that wedding. So they start playing pranks and sabotaging each other to see which one of them is going to call off the wedding first. But through all of that, they find the people that they were in the first place when they first fell in love. So it's a rekindling and it's a second chance of love. It is so good. It's so funny. It's so sweet. You get to really know Naomi and like her insecurities and why she is the way she is, and you get to see Nicholas's love for her, and it's just, I feel like this book needs to be more talked about, so go read this book. You Deserve Each Other. The only reason why it gives me fall vibes is because one of the big plots in this book is a house, and the house is like in nature, so there's a lot of canoeing and nature things. A big house in the middle of nowhere just gives me fall vibes. I don't know why. Don't ask me to explain myself, just trust me. Next up, November 9th by Colleen Hoover. You know I had to say it. You know I had to say it. Search up trigger warnings. Any Colleen Hoover book, search up trigger warnings. November 9th is the story of Ben and Fallon. You get both point of views. Ben is an aspiring novelist. He meets Fallon and they decide that they're going to give him a story to write about, a worthy love story. But they don't want it to be just a regular love story. So they decide that every single year for the next couple of years on November 9th, they're going to meet and they're going to be together. But on every other day of the year, they are not together and they do not communicate. So they can just live their lives without each other, and then on November 9th, they meet back up. This book goes through several different November 9ths. I don't want to tell you much more than that because obviously in typical Colleen fashion, there is a plot twist. There's actually 2 plot twists in this one. Most Colleen books, I like for people to go into it blindly, but definitely search up trigger warnings. This is not my favorite Colleen book, I will say. I've said it before. I think I still rated it 3.5 or 4 stars, so I still liked it. It's just not my favorite Colleen book, but I'm going to read it again on November 9th, so that's what I think you should do. Read it on November 9th just to get that feeling, you know what I mean? The last book that's on here is the reason why I made this video in the first place, because this is the most coziest book I've ever read. Are we ready? Marriage for One, Ella Mays. I love this book. I love this book with my entire heart. So this book follows the story of Jack and Rose. Yes, Titanic reference is definitely talked about in this book. Okay, the light just came into my room like so heavily. It is Grumpy Sunshine. And it is a slow burn. This book is so good. I get giddy just talking about it. And it has both point of views. This book starts out with Jack and Rose getting married. And you're like, why are these people getting married? They don't even look like they know each other. And you would be correct, they don't. They just literally got married for convenience. I'm not going to tell you why because you find out in the book. And there's forced proximity, marriage of convenience, grumpy sunshine, slow burn. There's also the injured trope in this that you see the guy taking care of the girl. You get that on here. Let me read you this part in the back, ready? 1 second he was no one, the next he became everything. 1 second he was unattainable, the next he seemed to be completely fine. 1 second I thought we were in love, the next it was nothing but a lie. After all, I was Rose and he was Jack. We were doomed from the very beginning with those names. Did you expect anything else? This book is so good. Oh my God. One of my favorite parts about this book is that it centers around a coffee shop, because Rose wants to open a coffee shop called Around the Corner. And so you get to see her build that coffee shop and you get to see him help her do that. There's a lot of pastries, there's a lot of coffee, there's a lot of traditions that they create together. It's just so comforting. I don't think I've ever read such a comforting book like this one. Also, fun fact, if you like the Spanish Love Deception like I do, you see that Lena and Aaron in the Spanish Love Deception often go to that coffee shop around the corner. The coffee shop they made in this book. That is Rose's coffee shop around the corner. And you see the girl in the Spanish Love Deception, the barista that's always talking to Lena and that Lena really likes. She's the one that's in this book too. I love little connections like that. It's just so fun. Definitely would recommend this one. Jack Hawthorne is everything. Their love is everything. It is one of those that they find comfort and find home with each other. I will never stop recommending this book. It is so good. That is all. Oh my god, no. Of course it had to fall. So besties, these are the 8 books that I feel are very cozy, very comforting, very fall. I definitely suggest you read every single one of these. They're all amazing. I think that you would like every single one. That's just like my expert opinion. I think you should go read these. Okay, that's all I have for today, Shiny Bays. I hope you enjoyed this. The lighting in my room has just become very bad, but you know what? It's fine because the video's over. So have a great day. I love you. Let me know if you read any of these. Keep me updated on what you're reading. And if you read something because of me, I want to know. I want to know what you thought. Unless you hated it, then don't tell me. I mean, you could tell me. You could tell me. I'll be offended, but you could tell me. Okay, bye. I love you.